Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Rambling Toffee podcast. I'm Mark. I hope everybody's well and had a good week. I'm looking forward to the weekend. Today's podcast has taken a little bit of a different pathway, especially after yesterday's interview with Dele, with Gary Neville. I thought this podcast would be a good podcast today to talk about that interview and talk about mental health issues and mental health issues in general. And how it can affect anybody and everybody in so many different ways and so many different, from young and old, and it can hit you at any point in time. My first feelings regarding the interview yesterday was how brave Dele was to actually do that interview with Gary Neville and to do it on TV and to let the world know. We're in a generation through social media where it's instant reaction straight away. The great thing from the interview, I feel, what Dele was talking about, his experiences as a child, growing up, and all the issues that he has to deal with the day to day of his life, came across so amazingly and really resonated with me regarding, my situation and my mental health issues, which also started from a childhood and they still have an issue today. So watching that interview really helped me to actually feel, well, today if I'm doing this podcast, I'm going to talk about my mental health and how I've overcame that mental health issues and how I still continue have to overcome the mental health issues that I go through. But it just shows you that a player of Dele's ability, and we all know how great he was when he came on the scene when he was younger. What a great player for Tottenham he was and England, and how he got better and better. But in realization that behind all that, he had his battles, his demons to deal with. And for the fact is, we've only started to see over the last few years what's happened to him on the field predominantly, and off the field we've seen him, of course, partying and doing all the things that he actually talked about yesterday, and of course his addiction issues and so on and so forth. That we can go over ground at any other point in time in the future. But for me to be able to watch that and actually feel that I'm going to talk about this as well and how I got into this position to be confident enough to do podcasts and to actually talk about Everton Football Club in a way, and hopefully everybody out there who listens to my podcasts will actually enjoy them and actually agree or even disagree with whatever I have said, my own view and opinion. I'm always tries to be impartial with my views, but to get to this point, it's taken a long time. And growing up as a child, I went through bullying, and basically it destroyed my confidence, my belief in being the person I wanted to be. And at one point in time, the only thing that was keeping me going was playing football. So I played football, and thankfully I got to a level, a semi-professional level. But when I play football, that's the only place where I was confident and happy in being expressive and being confident and being to play a way that I want to play, and I got good at it. But then when my career ended within football in when I was about 18, um, I had to figure out a new way, a new direction. But because I didn't have any interests out there other than football, I was good at doing some acting bits. I'm a voiceover. I can do like voices and that. That was another bit of talent that I was good at. But I didn't know an avenue to get into it. But I had no confidence to do so. So what happens next is that for another 20, 30 years to get to my age now, I'm 47, I had to try different jobs. I have to try different things to see if that works, this works, and everything else. I found myself working within clerical, working in an office environment, and I've been doing that for near enough 20 something years. But in the back of my mind, throughout that period of time, even doing that job, I still suffered with lack of confidence and lack of belief, looking at the job that I'm doing and thinking, this is not the job for me. I want to do something different with my life. I don't want to do that. I've always wanted to be in football. I wanted to be a part of football in one way or another. So throughout that time, so all through that period, I would have bouts of depression. I would not feel great physically and mentally. I was just fed up, and I tried different things away from that role, and I enjoyed doing them roles, but it never got any further. It never got the way I wanted to, and whenever I felt confident for just 5 minutes, it fall flat on my face. Something will go wrong, something backfire, and it would send me backwards, and I would get depressed and I get down about things, and I just think I've had enough of this. I don't need this anymore. And sometimes it got to that level when I started to think like that: Am I worth being here? But over the last 13 years, I've happily married and I have a 5-year old now, and that support network with my family has been absolutely fantastic. They've been supporting me throughout whatever I wanted to do and wanted to try. See what's something different. I tried a bit of supporting artist to be an actor. I've done that. I did enjoy it, but you can't earn a living at doing it unless you're doing it full time. And doing voiceover stuff, which is something that I'm good at doing, but I've tried to do that. I tried to do recordings and everything else. Um, Getting it out there, use social media, follow a lot of people in that industry, but it's never really took off, and I tried that as well. So every time I try something new, it'll backfire in my face. So to get to the point where I am now, I'm in a job, perfectly fine with that. Um, but it's not what I really want to be doing. So I looked at podcasting and I thought, I love talking. I'm passionate about Everton Football Club. I love talking about them every day. I don't really speak to my wife about Everton that much because she's a Liverpool fan for her sins. So she doesn't really understand the whole complexities and the whole situation that Everton Football Club are going through at the moment, through the struggles that they're going through, and I just wanted to vent and put my views out there and what I really thought of Everton through, as I've mentioned in my previous podcasts, about the board, about the investment, about the team, about everything else that is in between. So I come on here and I refer to myself as the Rambling Toffee because I ramble on about the Blues, and I just love talking about Everton in any way possible. What my views and what my opinion is of it. So that's basically for me, about getting to this stage. So this is why I started to do it, and I decided to do it, see how it goes, and I started to get a good reaction from all the Evertonians out there on social media, which I always appreciate the feedback and the retweets and the likes of each podcast I've done. I'm getting an audience and I'm getting people liking what I do. So I'm going to continue doing it. I'm going to keep on growing it and making it bigger and better, um, and hopefully add more people to come on to the show as well. So that's what I want to do in the future. And it's just that's where I want to take it at this point in time. But the interview yesterday that Dele gave, and it just shows you how it resonated with me, for me to come out on this podcast to talk about my life and how I got to this stage. But it just shows you that players, the players that we have at the football club, we just want to see them play football and do their thing week in, week out and perform for us. And sometimes, if it's not always the case, but sometimes if we see them not performing well or they're not on the bench or why they're not playing, is it an injury or whatever it may be, sometimes we just assume and jump to assumption. Sadly, we have to, because as much as football players are public, they're out there and they get paid lots and lots of money, and we know what kind of, they are role models as well, and they good people, and they try to keep themselves private and not to talk, too much out there with on interviews or out there to a wider audience. We just make assumptions and we just make our opinions known, thinking, oh, he's just playing crap. What's the point? He shouldn't be playing. We should just sell him, get rid of him. Like, he's not good for this football club. He's not playing well. And sometimes we don't know what is actually going on. And we don't. I don't want all players who may be struggling with their mental health to actually do an interview like Dele did and actually say, well, the reason why I'm not playing well or doing it is because and. That's not always the case. But sometimes I think sometimes we just need to be a little bit less critical. I would always say we'd be critical of the performance when they do play. We can always be the case because we're entitled to do so. But I would never take it personal against the person. I would always be more against the player's performance and not them personally. And sadly, there's people out there who um, will take certain players and they will take the piss out of them. Sorry, I swore. Um, take the piss out of them, and you know, on a personal level, for whatever they're doing, if they are, doing something off the field that is wrong and not right, yes, we can be critical of that as well, and say why is he doing that, blah blah blah, and that's understandable, but you know, taking it personal shouldn't be what we should be doing while on social media or any other platform. Be critical of their performance, which is perfectly fine. And I've said this all along. It's like with the board at the moment. It's like with Bill Kenroy. I don't know anything personally about him. I just know he failed as a board member, failed as an owner, failed as a chairman. I look upon it as what he does in his business. I don't look at any other personal reasons um, and taking anything like that. And that's just how I've always been, and I feel, it's the best way forward. Um, but that's just the way of the world at the moment, just the way life's become. But as I say, and go back to Dele's interview, is it just shows that the situation he's been through, you know, if he was shown the right pathway after Pochettino left the club at Tottenham, and the new manager was very similar. Mourinho was the manager, and took him to one side and looked after him and made him feel it's very similar kind of circumstances to what Pochettino did. Then he may have got through. He may have still improved further, and he may have not even been at Everton. Um, for that example, so it's interesting that but we don't know what's really going on because he kept quiet, like most men predominantly do. We keep it all to ourselves, don't talk to anybody about it, just keep it going, and then it just builds and builds up, and it explodes in so many different ways. It can explode in the way that it happened with Dele, with addictive to medication and drinking and everything else. For me, it kind of was, I just kept it in myself, and I just would, you know, uh, go into a corner and not talk to anybody and go very, very quiet and not really express any kind of issues that I may have. And also, I would put an act on. I was very good at acting, making everybody feel that I was okay and happy go lucky and everything's good in the world, but it, that was not the case. Um, so, from that point of view, but also I'll say about the interview yesterday, also it just shows you that there are players out there going probably through similar situations or similar situation which is causing them to struggle mentally. We can go back in time with Everton, actually, to be honest with you, with Aaron Lennon. If we all remember the time when he's struggling and needed all the help he can get. And I think, again, just mentioned, the football club was really, really helpful and supported him, and he came through it. And He's doing really, really well at this moment in time. We also had last season with Dominic Calvert-Lewin and the struggles that he was having, not just through his injuries, but trying to get back in his mental health. And again, the club was supportive of him to get him through that situation, but also he came out and talked about it and the issues that he was having. So again, you know, if you talk about it, and if you know, the services is available out there and the support is out there, you should take it straight away. As soon as you start to feel that you're struggling with your mental health, you know, go to your doctor, or you go to the nearest support network out there to help you out. And I think with in all them circumstances, the support was always there for them, and but they had to go out and talk about it. They have to go out and actually do something about it to get that support and that help. So hopefully, what Dele did yesterday is actually going to open a door for more players, but not just players. As I mentioned in this podcast today regarding myself, it opened me up to talk more about my own mental health issues, and hopefully, if you listen to this and it will help you with your mental health issues. If you've got any problems or struggling, then start talking about it. Start talking to your family, your friends, people who are in your support network. Go and talk to the doctor if you don't want to go down that road at the start. Do something about it before it gets worse and worse and it goes further and further down a road that you don't want to go down to. And I just feel that that interview yesterday opened a door for me, but also opened a door for anybody else out there. And I think that's what he wants, which is really, really good. To get his experiences to tell about what's happened to him and how he's come at the other end of it, and he's now in a positive frame of mind. Hopefully, we'll start in a selfish way. We'll start to see that on the football field, and he can do what he enjoys most, and that's playing really, really well and scoring goals. And we can see the player that he was at Tottenham a few years ago when he was absolutely fantastic. And if he can be like that, I think he will be a massive, big key for Everton next season. And just to go away from that for a second, that if we have to pay the £10 million after so many appearances, so be it. But if it means we get performances from him week in week out and we're getting results, then you know, I, 10 million is probably a snip in the ocean, really. And I know with the financial situation we are in, hopefully we'll have that cash available for us to actually do that. So we'll see. That's for another day. But what he's done is hopefully help more footballers out there, people in general, anybody who's struggling to make that first step to try and to sort their life out and do the, the right thing and the best way to help them to go forward. So, from my point of view, that's what I felt about the interview yesterday. And, for me, just shows you how brave he was to do that. It was very emotional for me, and watching that, and I just hope in, in the future that he will get better and better um, as a person and more healthy mentally and physically, and we will see him in the best way he wants to be. So yes, that's my take on yesterday interview. Um, and from my point of view, I do appreciate you know everybody listening to my podcast, helping my or podcast to grow going forward. Um, and I'm so appreciated by it. And I'll always say, if there's any feedback, please let me know, positive or negatively, about it, as I grow this podcast, and hopefully it will get bigger and better as time go on. As you can guess, it's a learning curve with each episode that I do. So thank you for listening to this podcast today. So next week's podcast will be back to its usual, which will be me rambling on as usual about all things Everton. And there'll be plenty of things going on, not just from the game tonight, from the Ashley Young signing. Hopefully, we'll sign some more players by the time I do my next podcast. Hopefully, hear more about when MSP come in to take over the board and the running. Hopefully, the club on a day to day. I'll speak more about the stadium and so on and so forth, and so many other things which will come into my head over the weekend and into next week. So for now, thank you for listening to this podcast. I hope you all have a great weekend, and I will speak to you next week. So take care, and bye bye.